Something that we have not really discussed too much in 2025 is the regression of second baseman Luis Garcia Jr. What's going into it, and is this for real?
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, I am your host, Ryan Clary. You can catch me over on Twitter at RyanClary11 and as well as our show page at LO_Nationals. For all your latest Nationals news and notes, make sure to check us out over on Twitter. And of course, look up Locked On Nationals wherever you get your podcast. Later on in today's show, we will preview the Nationals West Coast swing if they start out tonight in Seattle. They play against the Seattle Mariners with Mitchell Parker on the bump. We'll have that series preview. And of course, look ahead to their West Coast swing all week long here for Locked On Nationals. We'll discuss that later on in the second segment. I came up with a little bit of different scenarios, and there's a lot of what ifs for the Washington Nationals in 2025. We're going to tackle those and answer those big questions in the second segment of today's program. What if? Stay tuned. We'll discuss that in the second segment. But we start off discussing Luis Garcia Jr. and all of his struggles so far this year, because let's tell you how it is. He has regressed, kind of back to where he was in 2021, in 2022, and when he was sent down in 2023. And when Luis Garcia Jr. was sent down in 2023, it was in the middle of a huge struggling summer for him. He was just not hitting the baseball, really had no control at the plate, and Mike Rizzo also kind of let him know that his preparation was not good enough to be a major leaguer. That was very alarming. And then he came in last year and statistically speaking was a top 5 offensive second baseman in all of baseball, and maybe even a top 3 second baseman in all of baseball, because look at his numbers. Luis Garcia was awesome last year. He had a little bit of power. He was getting on base at a more consistent rate. And I think we all kind of went into this offseason thinking Luis Garcia Jr. has finally arrived. Well, over the first 2 months of this season, Luis Garcia Jr. has gone back to his old ways. He's batting .231. He's getting on base on a less than 30% clip, and he has a .363 slug, 4 home runs, and 19 RBIs. So, with these struggles, it always comes back to one thing for Garcia. It's his chase. If you look even last year, or in 2023 and 2022, pick the year, it does not matter. Luis Garcia Jr. has always been one of the worst hitters as far as their chase rate goes. He's always ranked in the bottom 10 percentile, similar to what he is doing yet again this year. And even last year, when he had that breakout season, he was still chasing at a rate that just was not good. And it's not major league quality. That has always been the issue. And it's always also been the issue for Keibert Ruiz, who's kind of had similar stats over the last few seasons. But right now, with where we are with Garcia, I think we're at a more pivotal moment for him. Because Garcia was one of those guys, I think this offseason, where I was one saying, maybe we should trade him. Maybe you sell high on him after a great breakout season. He's still 23, 24 years old, and the Nationals could get something back for him to help them out on the major league roster and maybe spread out that value around the infield or wherever it would come. But we're now going back to the old Luis Garcia Jr. And that part is concerning to me, because where he is today, he is closer to his 2023 self than his 2024 self, and he is regressing. That's what it is at this point. Is there ever going to be a fix at this point? And I think we kind of talked a lot about this with other players also. If you give them a few years in the majors, they'll tell you who they are. They'll tell you where their weaknesses are. They'll tell you where their strengths are and what they are good at and what they aren't good at. Luis Garcia Jr., he's going to put the ball in play. That's what he's really good at. Always been that way, always will be that way. Luis Garcia Jr., what he's not good at is chasing the baseball out of the zone. He's going to swing at a slider a couple inches down in the zone. Doesn't really have the plate discipline of guys that you've seen who have taken those steps up, like C.J. Abrams, who's now putting the ball the other way a lot of the time. James Wood, who's got great plate discipline. Nathaniel Lowe has a track record of having good plate discipline. Luis Garcia Jr. does not have that. And I look at all these expected numbers, which may be a little tainted, if you ask me. Because everyone asks, like, well, what about his expected batting average? What about his expected slugging? It's always in the 80th plus percentile. He's always way up there, and people and statistics and analytical nerds think that this guy is going to break out eventually. Well, with the expected numbers, there is a little bit of a parallel there with guys who have these high expected numbers and who also put the ball in play at a very high rate. Luis Garcia Jr. puts the ball in play at a very high rate. I don't think he's got 4+ years of just being unlucky. That just does not make sense in baseball. This is a game where you do fail more than you succeed. We all know that. Everyone understands that. We're all in agreement there. But you can't just get unlucky over 4 years. I think the expected numbers, like the expected batting average, which right now sits in the 81st percentile, and his expected slugging sits in the 61st percentile, I think those speak for the fact that he just puts the ball in play. And yes, you might be thinking to yourself, well, at some point, that's really all you want is put the ball in play. I guess. But I also think in those numbers, Luis Garcia, the balls that he is putting in play, at sometimes it's a splitter inside the zone where it's 4 inches inside and he's putting the ball in play for a little dink hit. That's not really doing it for me. Luis Garcia Jr., he's going to have to fix up some things here. Because let's be honest, you've got Seaver King down in the minors who might be your second baseman of the future. Still kind of have to see what goes on there. You've got guys like Brady House, who's going to be your cornerstone for this Nationals franchise for hopefully for years to come. And you've also got some other names who are really rising up the boards right now. Angel Feliz down in rookie ball. I'm really high on him. I like that kid. He could be your second baseman in the future in 3 to 4 years from now. But Luis Garcia, the time is like kind of now. Because you did have that breakout here. We all saw the ability. We saw the potential with Garcia Jr. But now you're starting to regress back in old times. And it brings up this thought of, what if last year was just a fluke? What if last year was his lucky season where the ball did start to land, where he did have a little bit more power, where he was striking at pitches in the zone? Because his chase rate was still the same last year. It just so happened to be that he was getting on base, he had a higher average, and he was hitting for a little bit of slug and became one of the best offensive second basemen in the game. But also on the other hand of this card is, what if the first 2 months of the season here, he's just been struggling? And we have to get in the summer where last year in the summer, that's when he really started to take off. And that could be the case here. But let's be honest. This has been a very disappointing season so far for Garcia. Through the first 2 months, again, through your first 46 games, not really doing too much. A sub 700 OPS, a sub 100 OPS plus. And last year, through his first 46 games, he wasn't a world beater, but he was better. Batting 262 at this time last year compared to 231 this year. A 719 OPS last year compared to a 643 OPS. The home run totals are similar. 4 home runs this year, 5 home runs last year. But Garcia is going to have to start picking it up because this has always been the issue for him. It's his chase. And can he be disciplined at the plate? Can he take his walks? Can this guy start putting solid contact in play? And also, can he start playing better defense? Because this year, kind of gone back to his old ways again defensively. Not that great. So all in all, Garcia Jr. has been struggling. And I don't think it's insane to say that this year is going to be a pivotal year for where the Nationals go with him. He's talented, but are you really going to try to keep this guy long-term and try to lock him up to a long-term extension with the numbers that he's putting up? I'm not. And I don't think the Nationals will either at this point, unless they really believe in the talent, which it is there. But it's a matter of putting it all together. And right now, he is struggling just like he did well before 2024 and over the last 3 to 4 years, really. So it's been a disappointing season, but Garcia, he's got the talent. It's just a matter of if this guy can turn it around. So thank you all for making Locked On Nats your first listen. Next, let's get into these what-if questions, because the Nationals, they're not bad right now. And they could have had things go their way. So what if they did? We'll answer those questions, kind of get a feel of where the Nationals could be if these things went their way. But we'll discuss that after we tell you about our friends at Supply House. And of course, get the supplies that you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is a reliable way to order products online. And their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources in the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. And you need help in an order, Supply House offers expert support, industry-leading service that someone like me who rents an apartment here, sometimes I need to know some fixes. I go to supplyhouse.com. I look up my fix. They give me a step-by-step instruction on how to fix it and even ship the supplies to me from coast to coast. So join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. Again, that is promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That is supplyhouse.com. Let's jump into these what-if prompts for your Washington Nationals. And of course, got to start off discussing some injuries. So my first what-if is, what if Cade Cavalli never got hurt? Back in 2023, or back in 2022, when I first started this podcast, really before it even, that's when Cade Cavalli had Tommy John surgery. Or actually, no, let me take that back. That is when Cade Cavalli made his debut, injured his shoulder, and was shut down for the rest of the season, and which was a pretty much lost year for the 2022 Nats. They traded away Juan Soto. Everyone was sad. The second half of the season was honestly depressing. But what if he never got hurt? Where would Cade Cavalli be today? I believe that Cade Cavalli would be at least your 3 starter if he never got hurt. Now, where is Cade Cavalli today? He's in AAA, making it. Well, he's not doing rehab starts anymore, but he is building back up to make his return to the major leagues. And Cade Cavalli has looked good, and the stuff still seems to be there. But when you do have Tommy John surgery, when you miss nearly 2 years of baseball, it's kind of hard to think ahead of time and be like, this guy's still going to be really good. That's a tough thing to do. Because let's be honest, arm injuries for anyone who throws 99 to 100 the way that Cavalli did, it's going to take some off you. It's going to kind of hinder and kind of hold you back of what he could be moving forward. So if Cade Cavalli never got hurt, the Nationals would have had Mackenzie Gore, followed by Cade Cavalli, followed by Jake Irvin, who has turned out to be really good, Michael Soroka in the rotation, and Mitchell Parker. And also, if DJ Hurst never got hurt, he would have been in the rotation. Things would have been different. Josiah Gray, if he never got hurt, the Nationals would have had a nice, solid 5-man rotation here. Now, I'm not saying it's all because of Cade Cavalli. The guy got hurt, had to get Tommy John surgery. But I think to myself at times, what if Cavalli never got hurt? This guy was a top 30 prospect, and in my opinion, he probably would have been a top 20 prospect in all of baseball heading into 2023 if he never got hurt that season. And he was flashing down in that spring training. He looked really good. The Nationals were very, very high on him. He was one of the lone first-round picks that they have taken since Steven Strasburg, who's actually starting to pan out as far as pitchers go. Cade Cavalli seemed like the guy, the ace that we all talked about, the night that was going to come in and save everyone. But that's just not the case right now. But here's the good news. Cade Cavalli should be in the major leagues, hopefully in the next month or two. And maybe if that next injury happens in this rotation, he's going to be the guy who gets called back up, and he's going to have an opportunity to take a starting spot and run with it. Who's going to be the guy to be DFA'd? Who's going to be the guy to be optioned? I think we'll just have to see at that point. But I look at Trevor Williams right now, who starts tomorrow's game against the Mariners. It's a pretty juicy rotation spot for someone who throws 100-plus miles per hour. Getting Cade Cavalli in there would be a nice little boost to this franchise. So keep in mind, Cade Cavalli, what if he never got hurt? The Nationals would have been in a much better situation today. Second what if. What if the Nationals decide to trade Kyle Finnegan at the deadline? Two answers here. Number one, they should. And number two, it's going to hurt the bullpen. So, balancing both those things out, here's what I will say. If the Nationals come this deadline are around 500, are a couple games back from a wild card spot, you should not move off of Kyle Finnegan. You should not. But if you think that this team is not ready for that next step, which I think is still to be decided at this point, I do believe that right now this team is not a postseason team, and this team is not set up for a run in October, but we'll see how this summer plays out. But if they do try to trade Finnegan, this is going to be the correct decision. The Nationals, in my opinion, they should have traded him last year. You should have traded him the year prior, that also. But they have held on to him. And fortunately enough for them, Kyle Finnegan has gotten better last year, being an all-star in the National League. And this year, he seems to be on his way to being an all-star also. So the Nationals, if they do try to shop Finnegan, there has to be some different scenarios here at play. The scenario that I think will happen is that unfortunately the Nationals will kind of see the proof in the pudding here and say that this team is not set up for success this season, and you move him for someone who is maybe major league ready, a younger bullpen piece. Whether you have Mason Thompson kind of like talent, who we all thought Mason Thompson would be great. Unfortunately for us, he has been hurt the last few years and has not really done the job up to this point. But Kyle Finnegan is one of those guys where he's kind of on that line of, is this guy really a part of the future? He's 33 years old. While he doesn't really have that much usage and he does play younger because of how he just has not pitched a lot in his career, I still believe that Finnegan would be a great trade piece. And I know people are probably going to be frustrated with it, but hear yourself out. What's more important? Is now more important with these older veteran guys like Kyle Finnegan? Or is next year more important if you get someone in AAA who's throwing 97 miles per hour and has the potential to be a legit major league closer? Might take him a little bit longer, but still, what's more important? I would go with the latter at this point. And I don't know what the Nationals would do, but I think trading Kyle Finnegan should certainly be on the table for them. And if that does happen, hopefully it's someone who is major league ready that can help us like tomorrow. But we'll see what Mike Rizzo decides to do, because they've been pretty reluctant on trading him and really any veteran pieces for this team. And guys we have also talked about with Nathaniel Lowe. I've kind of been pretty outspoken with this. I would trade Nathaniel Lowe if it came down to it. I like Nathaniel Lowe. He is a good player, but I'm not sure how much he's going to help this team. And can you find better? I think you can. He's good, but he's also replaceable, everybody. We kind of have to forget the fact that, yes, he was a former Silver Slugger. Yes, he was a former Gold Glove winner. But the Rangers traded him for Robert Garcia for a reason. They're not just giving someone up with 2 years left to control, someone who has won all those awards, someone who has won a World Series and been to 2 World Series with the Rays back in 2020 and in the Rangers in 2023. There's a reason they moved off him, guys. So we can't kind of lose that here in the mix. But I think those are some good what-if questions. And what if the Nationals decide to do either of those? And what if Cade Cavalli never got hurt? I think it's kind of a tricky question because Cade Cavalli, mega talented, but at this point, we'll see what he does when he makes his second start in Major League Baseball. We'll be waiting for it because it's going to happen soon. At least that's what we think. Thank you all for making Locked On Nets your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Next, let's talk about this West Coast swing because the Nationals, they get started tonight against the Mariners. We'll preview that after this. Thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. The Nationals, they are up in Seattle in the Pacific Northwest tonight. You have Mitchell Parker on the bump for your Washington Nationals. And then tomorrow, you've got Trevor Williams and Mackenzie Gore, your Nationals ace, on Thursday. I will say this. The Mariners are a very tough team to play. This is not an easy West Coast trip. Here's what I will say, though, about Seattle, is that their offense at times can go quiet. Cal Raleigh is having a breakout, unbelievable season, and he's going to get got, or the Nationals are going to get got at some point. He is going to hit a home run or two this series. That is one guy that you're going to have to avoid because, again, a lot of Mariners fans have just rambled about this guy for years. Overall, numbers-wise, he's put up some solid numbers at times, but I just look at the numbers and I'm like, I don't watch this guy. Like, he's good. But now we're starting to see it. He's got mega power. He's going to hit 35-plus home runs this season, and that's what he's on track to do. Really major league talent here. Also, another bad thing is that this Mariners pitching staff. We don't know who they're actually pitching tonight. The Mariners have yet to kind of go in and announce their starters for the 3 games here in town. But here's what I will say. The Mariners have always had really good starting pitching. And I think the Mariners, overall, they are a very talented franchise with very good, bright, young talent at this point. But looking at what they do best, it's probably their pitching. And actually, by the way, they just came up with their starting pitcher for tonight's game. You're getting Logan Evans, a 12th round pick back in 2023. And he's put up, again, good numbers. His first 5 starts of the season, he's got 27 innings pitched, 21 strikeouts. Although I will say this, does give up the long ball. 5 home runs in his 5 starts. So they did literally just announce. I just got the notification on my phone. So that's good to see that the Nationals will be going up against a good young starting pitcher. But Mitchell Parker, you never really know what you're going to get with him. And then in tomorrow's matchup, again, on Wednesday, you have got another pretty tough assignments going up against George Kirby, who is actually overall in his career has been a lot better than what his one start this year has dictated because he got rocked for 5 earned runs in his first start of the year. But he's making his return against the Nationals, and he's another very good starter. So you're kind of starting to see the theme here. The Nationals are going up against very good starting pitching. Although I will say this, when the Nationals, it's like with their backs against the wall, you feel as if this team just kind of puts up just ridiculous numbers at times. And the Nationals are going up against very good starters this year because, again, in the third start, Emerson Hancock, another former first-round pick, a former top 10 pick, 25-year-old who looked really good over the last 2 seasons. Maybe not as panned out to be the top 10 pick and the top prospect that everyone expected, but still a very good talent. And he's starting to put together a pretty solid season this year with some inconsistencies in there. But again, a dangerous starting pitcher, and that's what you're going to see tonight against the Seattle Mariners. So hopefully the Nationals get it done. The Nationals just lost their first series against the Giants, and that just feels as if it's wrong because the Nationals have actually been a much better team over the last few weeks. So maybe they get back in the swing of things. Maybe they need a little bit of a trip to the West Coast to kind of chillax and do what they got to do. But until then, hoping the Nationals get the series win. We'll talk about tomorrow's game on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Nationals. Catch you on the flip side. Have a good one. Go Nats.